Did Jesus read the Septuagint? Lately, we have been discussing the early Christians and how the early Christians did not have a concept of canon, nor did the early Christians have a body of books that would be equivalent of a New Testament. The first official use of creating canon comes from the Catholics at the Council of Rome in 382 AD, which made significant changes to the established books Catholics had been reading up until that point. Discussions of establishing a canon had been talked about, but no real pushes to establish a canon had been made until the 4th century. This begs the question, what did the ancient Christians read before there was a canon or compiled Bible? The answer is the Septuagint. The Septuagint was the authority that early Christian church and Jews used as the main source of books that would be the Old Testament for Greek and Aramaic speakers. When ancient Israel was conquered by Alexander the Great, he made, by law, Greek as the mandatory language of all his subjects, who, in turn, must speak Greek. This tradition was carried after his death with the Hellenistic kingdoms created by his remaining generals. One such general, Ptolemy, became pharaoh of Egypt, and his descendant, Ptolemy II, was the one who had the Septuagint commissioned in 285 BC. Ptolemy received 6 representatives from the 12 tribes of Israel, totaling 72 elders, to translate all the books of ancient Israel into Greek. This was a significant achievement, since fewer and fewer people knew how to speak ancient Hebrew, nonetheless read it, since Greek had been the mandated language since the time of Alexander the Great. With its creation, the Septuagint became the primary source of Jewish laws and books for Greek and Aramaic speakers. And while the original ancient Hebrew was primarily left at holy places, and only the priestly classes, religious scholars, and those who could afford the cost and time required to learn how to read Hebrew, this was extremely rare, as the literacy rate was very low, with some estimates being as low as 3% with a high of 10%. It is important to note that even among the literate population, not all of these would be in Hebrew, as Greek and Aramaic was a far more common language. This tradition remained the same even during the time of Jesus, as during the time of Jesus it was still extremely rare for an individual to know how to read Hebrew. This was one of the reasons why Jesus was so respected, even among non-believers, since he was one of the few that could read and understand the written Hebrew of the Torah. For those who could not read Hebrew, the option to read the Septuagint was available, and for the vast majority of early Christians, this is exactly what happened. Among historians, it is believed that most Jews during the time of Jesus could understand spoken Hebrew to a degree. However, Aramaic had become the most common language spoken. Jesus himself knew Aramaic and Hebrew. We know that Jesus was able to speak to the Roman centurion, who likely spoke Koine Greek. The Greek city of Sepphoris was near Galilee, and they would have spoken Koine Greek. We also know that Jesus was able to speak to Pontius Pilate, which means that Jesus may have even been able to speak Latin. This would mean Jesus could speak at least 3 languages with the possibility of him being able to speak 4. This begs the question, did Jesus and the apostles read the Septuagint? We know that the Septuagint was originally written in Koine Greek. Later, the Septuagint had been translated into Aramaic. We know that Jesus spoke Aramaic, and we know that he likely could speak Koine Greek. We also know that Jesus was literate and could read Hebrew. It would not be outside the bounds of possibility that Jesus could also read Aramaic and Koine Greek. This gives a real possibility that Jesus, who received a substantial education, would likely have read Jewish holy books, and it is not outside the realm of possibility that Jesus would have read the Greek and Aramaic versions of the books he was well known for reading. A larger question would be, did Jesus teach from the Septuagint? Although Jesus could have, he did not need to, as he could and did read the original Hebrew of the Torah. Many Protestant churches do not believe that Jesus read from the Septuagint. However, Greek Orthodoxy and the Catholic Church do believe Jesus taught from the Septuagint. Proponents of Jesus reading from the Septuagint point to Mark 7, 6-7, where Jesus quotes from Isaiah 29:13. They claim that the version of the quote Jesus translates from is the version of Isaiah found in Septuagint. Critics often make the argument that Jesus is either paraphrasing the Hebrew version or reciting the quote from memory. The distinction is actually an important one to make. We know Jesus could read Hebrew. We know he spoke Aramaic. We know he could likely speak either Koine Greek or Latin or both. We know that Jesus could read Hebrew, and we know that Jesus was well educated. We also know that Jesus lived next to a large Greek city that spoke Greek. There is a strong assumption that Jesus could also read Aramaic and Greek. It would be absurd to think that the very well-educated Jesus did not know of the Septuagint. However, whether Jesus taught from the Septuagint holds profound consequences. If Jesus taught from the Septuagint, then the Catholic and Greek Orthodoxy having some of the books of the Septuagint in their Bible holds more credibility. While if Jesus did not teach from the Septuagint, it would give more credibility to some of the Protestant Bibles that exclude them. This is not a simple question to answer, as there is an equally contentious debate on whether the apostles taught from the Septuagint. However, this is a question for another time. Did Jesus read from the Septuagint? Have you heard about the Septuagint? Did Jesus teach from the Septuagint? Did Jesus' apostles teach from the Septuagint? Let me know in the comment section below, and for more Supernatural History TV, like and subscribe.